How do you create a gorgeous or admirable antagonist? Well, you have 6 paths to follow. The certain path, the truthful path, the alive path, the affectuous path, the lofty path, and the generous path. We started this series on how to create antagonists because we want you to have clear choices. We want you to have choices. So in this series, you'll have 36 different profiles of antagonists. And we want you to have a clear definition of each of these profiles. So the 6 profiles presented in each video represents a different kind of character. Here, we're going to present you 6 different profile of character you can choose in order to create a gorgeous or admirable antagonist. If you want any more precision on this topic, on character creation, on antagonist creation, on surprising way to create characters, leave us a comment. When you're creating a gorgeous or an admirable character, you want to create an attractive character, a character other characters will want to follow. So this antagonist has to be attractive. She has to be certain of her decision, of her thesis, of her actions. She has to be truthful. She doesn't lie. She treats all her actions as she's supposed to treat them. Said another way, she acts the way she says she should act. So it's a consistent character and a coherent character. She has to be flexible to some degree. She has to be adaptive. This character will often be a strategist or a leader or a manager. So she'll have to manage her team. She'll have to lead her group. She'll have to plan her conflicts in a way in which she can capitalize on the strengths of each member of her team. So she has to be flexible and adapt herself to her team members. This flexibility is her way to steadiness. Steadiness here doesn't mean rigidity, or to some degree rigidity, but adapted to the degree of flexibility and adaptability that the character needs in order to win her conflicts, in order to succeed, in order to pursue her goal. Remember, this character should be certain, but not to the point to which she'll harm her own interests. A gorgeous antagonist has to be truthful. She has to be extremely cohesive. So she has to be extremely consistent and coherent. Her acts must match her thesis. They must match what she says. But they should not only match qualitatively what she says, but also quantitatively. So she has to be both coherent and consistent, more so than any other antagonist. This character is extremely cohesive. So she has to be truthful. She also has to be faithful. Faithful to her team, faithful to her group, to her peers, to her entourage, but also mainly to her thesis. So you have to establish her thesis quite early in the story. You have to establish her goal, a motivation, why she pursues them. So that's her thesis. If you want to make it easier, just try to design a set of rules by which you will abide for the rest of the story, and make these rules the rules of this antagonist. There's a certain degree of rigor in this antagonist, and she'll have to follow these rules thoroughly, wherever the situation is. She's quite a eager character because she's truthful, and she has some degree of candor in her appreciation. So she should be able to criticize, she should be able to analyze in a very truthful manner, in a very candid manner. Meaning that she have to give clear and direct appreciations. She doesn't hide anything. A gorgeous character is meant to be alive. This may be the dominant path you'll want to engage in. Remember, you have 6 potential choices, but the alive path may be the one which represents the gorgeous character the most. Much like The family path represents the relatable antagonist the most, much like the existence path represents the reckless antagonist the most. Each antagonist, each of these set of profiles will have a dominant profile, a profile which is maybe easier or maybe more authentic when it comes to creation. But you really have the choice to create six of them, and try to use all of them in your different story. Experiment all of them. Try see the one you prefer. So a character which is alive is truthful, just as previously established. She is true to herself. She is true to the set of rules she's established. That's her thesis. And by establishing rules to which she can be truthful, so said in another way, rules she wants to follow, she becomes alive. She also chose her entourage. She chose the person she's closest to. You could really replace alive by happy here. No, you can be happy when you're true to yourself, the principle you want to follow, and the people you're closest to. So that's what a gorgeous character needs to be. She needs to be alive. She needs to be happy. A gorgeous character can also be affectuous. Now realize that affectuous means that she will deliver, she will give her affection to the people she wants to. If she forces herself to be affectuous, that's not working, That's an antithesis. You can't force yourself to be affectuous. There has to be a high degree of choice all the time, and even more for this character, because the truthful trait, the truthful nature of a gorgeous antagonist defines this character. So there can't be no fake affection. That's not possible here. In order to deliver this affection properly, in order to quantify it properly and deliver it in the proper manner, she has to be empathetic. Because if she doesn't know what her peers need, what her peers want, what her group needs, what her nation needs, what her city needs, she can't be affectuous in the proper manner. She can deliver the proper kind of attention, the proper kind of care. She has to be caring, but not only, also in the right way. Remember, this character is a strategist. So to some degree, she's affectuous, and she can create leverage over this affection. Now, realize this. Leverage here is not the goal, it's only the result. The character gives. This character, and we'll see that later with the generous path, this character gives, she gives, and that's it. If someone else decides to give back, that's something that can happen, but that's not the expectation of your character, and that shouldn't be the expectation of your character. She is there to take care of others, because she knows taking care of others will help her in whatever way, in developing her character, for example. Now, because she's affectuous, don't confront affections, because affection may mean that she is waiting a lot from some characters, but not necessarily, but not for herself. She's waiting that these characters do the right thing for themselves. Remember also, this character is a strategist. She's also a manager, so she has to manage her team. So she'll go to her teammates, she'll go to her team members and tell them to do what's right for themselves. So she's demanding with her peers, but not for her own interest. She's demanding for their own interest. That's what affection means too here. She is waiting that, she's waiting. She waits that her peers, she intends to remold her peers for them to take care of themselves. A gorgeous character, an admirable character, a character people want to follow, can be lofty. Now, what does it mean here? Your character, this character, if she's the central figure of your group, if she is the leader of your group, or even if she's just a pillar of your group, she has to attract others. She has to attract others because others will have to listen to her because she has advice to give. Now, how does it translate in this character? A lofty character is a steady character. This has been introduced earlier. But now in the lofty dimension, steadiness takes another form. Steadiness is executed differently. This character attracts others around her by the fact that she's steady. That's not a result here. Steadiness here is the attraction factor. She can abide by her own rules. She is able to follow her own rules, and that's an admirable trait for others. She's also playful. Loftiness here really is a balance between steadiness and playfulness. So the character follows her own rules, but it doesn't mean that she's rigid, or doesn't mean that she's too rigid. She has some degree of rigidity when it comes to what's important. So her rules, her thesis, her fundamental goals. But for all the rest, she's quite flexible. So she can be playful, and that's a part of her attractiveness. Now, when you've established the balance between steadiness and playfulness, realize that a lofty character may turn quite obsessive. And you may already have a gist of that by just looking at all the precedent profiles. A gorgeous character can turn obsessive quite fast if she's after any type of crisis, actually. More so after a climax or after a final crisis, but any kind of crisis, any kind of harsh, stark, brutal event can turn her sense of truthfulness, her sense of her wish to be alive, her sense of affection, and here in this case her loftiness, and that's most prevalent here in case of a lofty, gorgeous character, can turn her into an obsessive character because this character is extremely engaged. She's truthful, she's attached, she's affectionate, she's generous. That's the last profile. So this character has this type of antagonist, the gorgeous type of antagonist, has a really high potential to become obsessive, and especially if she is an gorgeous and lofty character. Finally, a gorgeous character has to be, to some degree, that's a defined path here, but you can use it in a minor way in any other of the path because they're all flexible and they're all mixable and matchable. A gorgeous character, an admirable character, a character people want to follow, has to be generous to some degree. Now, the generous path, if you want to create a generous character, you can follow this model, this template as is, and just say, okay, I've got a character, she has two strengths, two weaknesses. Here the strengths are generous and whole, and the weaknesses are, or they may be, lavish and liberation. Now, what does that mean in our 4 character traits model? So, generous is the retranscription of the 3 other words. If you want to be truly generous, you have to be whole. If you want to be truly generous, if you want to be generous in the true sense of the word, you need not to expect anything in return. You need to give, and that's the end. If you get something in return, you get something in return, but you shouldn't even see it as something in return, in fact. Because you didn't give anything because you needed to receive something. You gave anything because you wanted to. And that's what defines a generous character. In fact, the generous character may give because there's a sense of freedom in this action. The generous character may give because it liberates her from pain. So it's not fully selfless, but there's a degree of selfishness in every generous act. You give to some degree because you want to enhance your own skills, maybe. You give, for example, you give a course, you give tutorage to someone else because you want to become a better teacher, because you want to become a better tutor, or because you may want even to become a better practitioner. And giving this course allows you to establish if your skills are enough. Because if you aren't skilled enough, you're gonna deliver improper course. So there's this degree of selfishness in every selfless act. And here, the liberation part is where this character is most prevalently trying to get something out of her actions, but not in the way you expect. That's never a direct exchange. The generous act should be lavish, and that's a parallel here to establish between lavish and whole. Your character will give everything she needs to give, so she'll retain a part of her resources for herself, but everything and anything that she can give away, she will. This character understands that giving away other things will help her. Giving away will help her, her group, her city maybe, her nation, her species maybe even. She's generous because she wants to make things to go better. And in return, in a better world, in a better environment, in a better setting, her own life will become better. If you enjoyed this content and want to know more on this topic, check our video on the 6 surefire way to create an antagonist.